Sol Invictus, the last strata of Roman religion. There's a hierarchy. Caesar's on top, the patricians and the equestrians and the plebeians and the slaves. And that's the sort of system that sort of permeates. Christianity kind of flips that on its head. And Caesar is the devil, 666, Nero. Jesus, who's just some random Jewish guy, is actually king and God himself. And the last will be first and the first will be last. It's a flipping of all morality, sort of like the social justice warrior movements of today. You get all these sort of martyrdom stories of
George Floyd.
George Floyd, thank you. I don't know. I couldn't think of any of them. So George Floyd's, or Irenaeus got ate by a lion. It's one of the stories, right? And everybody like rallies behind these martyrdom stories and sort of looks at this Roman state as something that needs to be rejected, right, in the Christian sense. But as it permeates through all the lower classes, and soldiers, a lot of soldiers are Christians, a lot of boat builders are Christians. They're joining because these people need jobs. They're joining stonemason clubs. You could see there's evidence of that. John Kloppenborg wrote a book about all the evidence that we have of the earliest Christian stone inscriptions that we have their names on what looks like old ancient trade unions, like a union, today you find like a union of like electricians, but back then you find like inscriptions and they would dig up like these ancient sites and it's like, oh, this is a boat building union and everyone's name is on this list and they're all Christians, by the way. And you have like leather tanners, boat builders, stonemasons, and this is where all the Christians are getting jobs. So they're spreading all throughout these inner cities. There's an inner city religion, and they're sort of being the shepherds of this movement are the educated class, the ones who are studying the scriptures, the ones that are studying Plato, studying the pre-Socratics, and so the people like Origen, the people like Hippolytus, who are just sitting around in libraries all day and writing up epistles to each other. And so this is sort of like this movement grows and grows and grows. And as I said, the Severans really put them on the map because before the Severans, they were just they were getting beat up real bad by the pagan philosophers like Plotinus and Iamblichus and Celsus was destroying them in his arguments against Christianity. If every Christian read Celsus, a lot of them could deconvert. That's how good Celsus is. Anyways, long story short, as it grows and as the Severans put them on the map and as they get through the crisis of the 3rd century, by the time you get to Constantine, he's looking at this perfect system of like a system of people who are going to work the fields and work and build my boats and run and fight in my armies. And why do I need all these cults of higher class people who are striving to be good, who might want to take over my government? These people have ambitions. I don't want that. I want the people on the bottom who just are happy at living as a fucking slave all day. That's what I want to rule. And so it fits perfectly. So the reason why I bring that up is because I disagree with Nietzsche's conclusion. I agree with him on the morals flipping, but I disagree with him. I think Rome conquers Christianity, not Christianity conquers Rome. Constantine saw Christianity for what it was and says, we're going to Romanize this thing. And
but was it not the goal of before Christianity? Was it not the goal of in Judaism that the Messiah would conquer Rome?
Well, it doesn't really say if it's going to go to Rome and conquer it and become Rome. It's more of Rome would be defeated in the war to come, and then the kingdom of heaven is going to come down. That didn't happen though. So Rome ends up becoming the head of Christianity, which I don't think that was ever in the plans. Which it just happened. It's just this way it ends up. Because I think the plan was Rome was supposed to be defeated and gone, and then the Messiah is supposed to rule from Israel. But the plans get shifted, and it ends up being Constantinople as the head of the church, and that's just the way it is. This is the best shot we got. Let's roll with it. Which you can't. I mean, that's just.
But I just showed you the verses that Paul cites from Isaiah and Psalms, where it clearly says that he's going to rule in the land of their enemies, and then they read from the scriptures that it would be rejected by his people and go to the nations. And, Christianity was intended for the Roman Empire, for the Gentile world. That's why
Paul also
it's
tells people
pay unto
not-
Caesar and the centurions that has the best faith. And it has negative portrayals of Judaism.
I think we should talk about Paul for a few minutes, because Paul also says not to get married or have kids because the Messiah is going to be back any day now. He says some of you aren't even going to die. He says some of you have passed away. And I get it. They're just sleeping right now. They're going to see the Messiah too. Don't worry. They're not missing anything out. He was convinced that Jesus was going to come back before the end of the first century.
Or come for the first time, maybe.
Come for the first time, right?
Yeah. Because he never knew him and only saw and
Never met
talked
him.
about the
Never met
post-resurrection
him.
resurrection appearances.
Okay, and then you're right. Paul is very schizophrenic in his own sense, because he's got that side to him. But you're right. It is almost like he is sort of setting up plans, because in another aspect, when Paul is writing to the Corinthians, he says they're really concerned about eating meat sacrificed to idols. And because they're living in this world that's pretty much mostly pagan. They're 10% of the population, I think, Christians and Jews together were. So 90% pagans, everyone's around this pagans. What do we do? Like, how are we gonna? Moses told us we can't eat meat sacrificed to idols, and Paul just says, "Fuck it, just do it." I mean, it's in Corinthians. He says, "Who cares?" I'm paraphrasing, but if you read Corinthians, look up Paul meat sacrificed to idols. He says, "It doesn't. They don't have. If your brother can't do it, he can't handle it. Don't do it. Don't do it in front of him. But you have the gnosis. Who gives a shit? Eat the meat sacrificed to idols. Who cares? It has no power over you." And this I don't know why I put up number 7. That was weird. And this becomes the it made no sense. Maybe we don't have free will. I'm just kidding. No, but this becomes the playbook that this becomes doctrine. Because the Roman imperial cult, their playbook was to go in and take over the cities, but import their cults and import their gods and take on their culture. So, for example, when Rome defeats Carthage in 204 or 202 BCE, when Hannibal gets...
Are you saying this sounds like Roman provenance? Are you saying the Romans created
No.
it?
I'll tell you why that theory's stupid in a second. Because
I agree.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's the Romans didn't create it.
Who were the original Christians then? Since we agree Paul just innovated and took it to the Gentiles, who were the original Christians, and why did they invent Jesus? Why did they search the scriptures and believe all these things?
I'm going to say the original Christians that Paul is writing to in his epistles are a mixture of Greek-speaking Jews and just regular Greeks who are interested in theos.
But that's who he's talking to, though. Like, who are the original Christians? Do you not believe it's James and Peter and the Ebionites, the Nazarenes, that they could have been related to the Qumran and the Essenes, the Jerusalem church, the poor ones, the Ebionites? I think that's where it started, and that's 100% a Jewish movement. Influenced by Hellenism, yes. Did they, and I agree with you, obviously on the Old Testament, they incorporated all types of Greek, Sumerian, Egyptian, Canaanite god. And then in the New Testament, yes, they did overlay the Davidic Torah Messiah over, an amalgamation of different pagan, dying, rising, passion gods, demigods, sons of gods. They just made their Jewish version of it. And then through Paul, targeted the Gentiles in the Greco-Roman world.
I agree with you on all that.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, whatever the goals and fantasies of the first century Judean rebel, let's just say that's what Jesus was, or even if you think Jesus didn't exist, James, whoever, somebody existed, somebody started this movement. It didn't just come out of nowhere. Whoever that was, we have no idea what their goals and fantasies and what they wished for the world to happen, because whatever they're like, it's not, this grand narrative of this one monolith, all had the same mindset, all had the same attitude for 400 years. I think it's just unrealistic. I think as generations pass down, people have different ideas. People branch off. You get different sects of Christianity, different sects of Gnostics, different sects of Judaism. You get rabbinic.
Christianity started with a lot of diversity of competing sects. Absolutely. That's why in Peter it says, "For we did not create cleverly devised stories," because and Paul says that people that are preaching other Jesuses, right? So there was other sects of Christianity that probably believed, and I think a strictly mythological celestial, that they were seeing in ascension experiences, like Paul says he's caught up into the third heaven. There's the ascension of Isaiah story where Jesus is crucified in heaven. There's the lost book of the Ebionites that Epiphanius talks about, called the Ascents of James. There's the Apocalypse of James, where he's having special revelations from Jesus. Doesn't sound like it's his flesh and blood brother, but he knew. I think the only way Paul would have had any influence, and the reason that in his epistles he so adamantly insists that he didn't learn any of the gospel of Jesus from any man, that he got it strictly from his visions and from Scripture. So the only way that would have any authority and credibility is if the Christians before him also only saw Jesus in Scripture and mystical experiences.
Well, I mean, I guess if mythicism was true, then I guess that's possible. But I just don't know how you get to that. I don't know how. I mean, I'm just fine with granting that probably was a dude. That's it. And but I'm totally with you on the texts that get written about him in the Gospels it's a different character. It's like taking Superman and out of whoever the actor of Superman or whatever. It's like a different person. It's a different whatever. But the reason why I brought up the Romans real quick, I want to highlight something of how we can actually make sense of all this. It was Roman doctrine to adopt the cults of their countries that they're taking over. So when we look at, like, for example, they're digging at Herculaneum right now in Pompeii in Italy, and they just found a giant statue of Attis on with a crown on his head, a laurel crown, and he's sitting on a throne, and and they have the great mother Cybele, what they call Magna Mater. This is Phrygian religion. That's not Roman. They adopted that from the Phrygians. You wouldn't say the Phrygians conquered Rome, though. Rome conquered the Phrygians. They just adopted their customs and religion. Now, Paul's attitude of who cares if they sacrifice meat to idols, this is almost like a natural selection thing that happens here, because after Christianity sort of becomes the de facto state religion, they start doing this in their country. They start continuing the Roman imperial cult playbook with Paul's teachings added to it. For example, when they go into Gaul and Germany, a lot of these, there's a letter from Pope. I said this in one of my videos. There's a letter from Pope Gregory in the 5th or 6th century, and he's telling the bishop in London to not destroy the pagan temples, to sprinkle holy water on it, take the idol out, put a cross in there, and then it's clean. It's sacred now. Make it a church, and let them continue to do their pagan rites. As long as it's not to one of the demons, as long as it's to Jesus, we're good. So that's the Roman imperial cult playbook, but it's just Christianized. It's still the Romans, dude. Still the same shit.